people to our community for the first time. Maybe not the way we expected, but we're really happy you're here. I'm here with Gwen Stover, who's the associate principal here at Twality. We're going to answer some questions in the Q&A, but we're going to go through our presentation tonight first, and then we're happy to answer any questions you might have toward the end. We have about 45 minutes tonight. And the intention tonight is really just to kind of lay out our plan for opening. We do have a brand new school. We know that there are students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who have never walked through our halls. So we just want to make sure that people know the plans we have for them as we welcome them into our school next week. I also just want to say that this is going to be the first really normal year we've had at Twality. We're going to be open 5 days in person. So we're not in a temporary campus. We get to welcome all of our students into our beautiful new building. And we just really could not be more excited to see them and to meet you and work with you this year. So we're going to open up. This last couple of days, we've been working with our teachers really closely on preparing for in-person instruction and going over some of the goals and priorities we have, but also doing some team building because we've spent a lot of time in meetings just like this over the last 2 years. So it's been really great to see all of those faces in person as well. So Thor, if you want to go to the next slide and show them a little sneak peek of what we've been up to. Thanks. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this, like I said, the last couple of days, our staff has spent some time getting to know one another. We're welcoming some new teachers to our community for the first time, and also going over some of our priorities that we're going to lean into as a community this year. So the first, we have 2 really big goals that we're going to focus on. The first is just really focusing on relationships and community responsive practices. So there's a couple of things that are unique to middle schools that we started last year that we're going to continue in person, which is really a focus on social emotional learning and what that looks like for middle school students, as well as using community and culturally responsive practices in our instruction. And then also understanding where students are at with their learning and then responding to that. So we're going to be looking at different assessments, working together in teams, and really identifying what kids know and what to do next. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time on those 2 priorities this year. And so our teachers spent some time with us doing that, but also having some fun as well. Next slide, please. And like I said, one of the first things that we're going to expose students to as they're coming through our doors is welcoming to our new community. We have, like I said, a brand new facility. We have brand new gyms. We have a brand new commons. We have a brand new turf field behind our building that is so exciting and just got finished. Me and Ms. Stover were running some laps today and as doing a walk and talk, getting to know that new space. So students are going to be arriving to us, having not really seen it or knowing all the procedures and how to navigate our campus, as well as getting to know one another. So we have a couple of things that are planned for next week. On Wednesday, we're going to be welcoming back our 6th grade students who are going to be doing web or orientation activities. Web stands for Where Everyone Belongs. So we have some student leaders that are going to orient those students to our campus, They're going to play some games together. They're going to get to know one another. They're going to feel excited to be a middle school student, get a tour of the campus, and kind of have almost the first dibs on seeing their new space and feeling comfortable with things. So that's going to be the first day for them. Then Thursday is going to be an orientation for all of our students. Because like I mentioned, not everybody has been here, and when they've been here during hybrid, they were kind of in one classroom and only a couple locations. So it's going to feel more like a traditional middle school this year, which is really exciting. Although we are taking some really necessary precautions to keep our community safe, which I'm going to go through next. Next slide, please. I'm actually going to turn over to Ms. Stover for this part.
Well, we just wanted to do a shout out. I bet many of you are waiting for your student schedule. We're very excited to welcome you back, and it's going to be fun to have electives in person as well as core subject areas. And our counselors are working on them furiously. We're enrolling a lot of new students. I feel people are excited to join our building. So please know that your student schedules will be viewable in Student View and Parent View Tuesday, September 7th. And the best way to reach counselors at this point is by email. So if you have questions about your student schedule, please email them. And please note that we have Ms. Alvarez in 6th grade. She is a Spanish speaker, and that is someone you could contact in Spanish if you have a question.
Next slide, please. So a couple of logistical things that I just want to talk about for families as you're coming onto our campus for the first time. The parent drop-off, if you're driving students to school, is going to be towards the front of the building, so sort of at the top where the parking lot is. It's a little small to see. Please note that the entrance on the left-hand side of the slide is where all parents' traffic comes in. The other place where it goes through the front of the building all the way to the end of the parking lot, then you take a left to go back to 97th. The other entrance at the top of 97th is where buses enter. So we just want to make sure that there's no family traffic coming down that way as you're entering our site. Please also note that we haven't had all of our students back at once. And so we don't know exactly what our traffic flow will look like. And so we're just going to ask that people be patient as we kind of navigate that for the first few days. If students are able to walk or ride their bikes or come up with a plan that doesn't involve being dropped off right in the front of the school, it will create a little bit less congestion for us as you're welcoming kids. Students who are walking or riding bikes or getting dropped off, instead of going through the separate entrances that we had during hybrid, they can come through the front vestibule, just like a normal school year. The buses are going to come in through that entrance to the right-hand side of your screen, and they're going to go down all the way around behind the building near the track and the turf to drop off behind the school. And all the students are going to enter through the outdoor basketball courts that are in the lower part of the screen. And like I mentioned, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but kids will know exactly what to do once they arrive. There'll be plenty of adults to greet them.
We've gotten some questions about which bus my students should take, and bus numbers I noticed are posted on Twality's Facebook page and on our main web page.
And bus numbers should also be viewable in Parent View as well soon. All right, next slide, please. So the first thing is what needs to happen before kids come to school, and that is doing a daily screening to making sure that there's no symptoms. So if students aren't feeling well, please stay home. We want to make sure that you're doing a self-check every day before coming to school. When kids do, when they do feel well and they do come to school, they are gonna, when they go to the bus, they are going to have assigned seats on the bus. That is something that's going to be new to Twality this year. That's something we wanted to do before COVID, but it's going to be really important that students know it's going to be a little bit different. And so once they get on the bus, they're going to have an assigned seat, and there'll be a process for them to be able to sit next to friends and have that be their assigned seat in the next couple of weeks. That's going to feel different though. Next slide. The other thing is that our main precaution that we're asking people to do is wear masks on campus at all times. That is the number one thing. We're going to be teaching students about that on the first day during orientation. We're asking students to wear them properly at all times during the day. The only exception is if they're eating and drinking, and if they're physically unable to wear a mask. Those are going to be the two exceptions. Masks are also required outdoors. So exceptions when they're at least 6 feet apart. So students will have opportunities to take some mask breaks. That'll be sort of directed by adults. Teachers are going to be taking some classes outside for activities. When they're doing PE and they're able to spread out, they'll be kind of indicated that they can take mask breaks. Teachers might do walk and talks where kids can take a break without masks. But otherwise, we are going to ask that they are on and secured properly throughout the day. And masks are also required on buses. Another thing about masks is that they must fully cover the nose and the mouth. And so gaiters and vented masks do not meet the requirements. And so we need to have a proper mask at school. The other thing I would mention is that it's going to be pretty important for kids to have more than one mask with them for some activities, maybe after PE or music or things like that. They may want another one, or like me this morning, they might spill coffee on theirs. And so it's going to be handy to have another one on hand.
I just want to shout out the kids that we had in fourth quarter hybrid were so awesome about this. We were continually impressed with your students and how they wanted to make sure they were doing what they could to keep the whole community safe. And occasionally, we forget a mask. We rush out the door. We will have masks here when that happens, right at the entrance that a student can grab, so that we understand that happens sometimes.
All right, next slide, please. The other precaution that we're going to be taking is physical distancing and following these guidance at all times. So in classrooms or in the building, we're going to ask that students maintain 3 feet of social distancing when at all possible while wearing a mask. So when they're at lunch, our lunch is going to be set up, which I'll talk about in a minute, where students will be 6 feet apart. And it says the option to eat outside, but we'll talk about lunch in just a moment. And then we're going to minimize gatherings of large groups when at all possible. Next slide, please. And then other COVID-19 safety precautions are going to be vaccinations. So as I'm sure most of you know, all adults, so staff, volunteers, contractors, coaches, people working with students will need to be vaccinated by mid-October. We're encouraging all students who are able to be vaccinated as well. And then hand washing and sanitizing. So classrooms that have sinks will be able to wash hands there. Every classroom will have hand sanitizers, bottles in there. Yeah, so those are the other precautions we're taking. Anything else, Ms. Stover?
No, I think we're really just emphasizing, I think what we're all excited about, and we hope your students are excited about, is there'll be a lot more opportunities to experience some of the social things that we all love about school. Activity time, not staying in small cohorts, but being able to see others at lunch. But what we're really emphasizing is masks, maintaining that 3 feet distance, and washing hands frequently. And kind of sticking with your seat at lunch, not clustering. And that's hard. We all want to do that. We all want to mingle, but we really need to maintain that distance and keep our mask on, be safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, so next slide, please. So this is going to be really a difference from a normal school year. It's the safest place to be is going to be outside. We also want to make sure that we're able to do contact tracing for students in case there is a COVID case on our campus. And we want to prevent students from congregating during unstructured time throughout the day as much as possible. So in order to do that, our doors are going to open at 8:15. Our new bell schedule has school starting at 8:30 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So our doors are not going to open until 8:15, which is only 15 minutes before class starts. So we are asking that students are not dropped off prior to 8 a.m., just knowing that they're going to be waiting until the doors are open, because they're not going to be able to congregate in our commons just because of supervision, and we want to prevent congregating and clustering together. On Wednesdays is our late start day. So same thing, our doors will open at 9:15 for that late start. And then students will have a grab and go breakfast opportunity upon entry to the school. Next slide, please. So in classrooms, masking is required at all times. So we're asking that teachers, as they're setting up classrooms, we went through this during our pre-service this week, is that they're setting up seating charts and so they can maintain 3 feet of social distancing when possible. Again, there's frequent hand washing. The good news about Twality is it is brand new. So we have a great HEPA filtering system in our school. And that teachers are going to be keeping seating charts for contact tracing. So that's a way for us to know where kids are sitting for different activities during a lesson. And teachers might have 1 or 2 seating charts that they're using. And so for different activities. So we really try to emphasize that, you know, if we keep our distances, we do a seating chart and we're wearing masks, that we can have a more free-flowing instruction that didn't maybe exist during hybrid when we had to maintain the 6 feet of distance. Next slide, please. At lunch, just like during last year when we opened for hybrid, free lunch is available to all students. Students are 6 feet apart whenever possible. And I'll talk about kind of how we're doing lunch, which is going to be for the first few weeks of school at least. There's going to be 3 different periods of lunch. So there'll be a 6th grade lunch and then 2 7th and 8th grade combination lunches. And half of that time will be scheduled inside and half will be scheduled outside. So for example, we have 2 floors of our building. So for 6th graders, the 6th grade students who are in the downstairs 6th grade hallway are going to go outside for the first 15 minutes of their break for activity. The upstairs students will have a chance to grab a free lunch and eat at their designated location in the commons, 6 feet apart, and then they'll switch halfway through the lunch. And so it's going to be a little different than normal, but we want to make sure that we can fit all students safely. And we are very lucky and fortunate to have a really beautiful, large space to accommodate students. Next slide, please. So lockers I know kids are very excited about lockers. They have, even our 8th graders have never had them because we were in our old campus. So my first year at Twality, when we had the portables on the field, they were lugging very large backpacks around. And so I know that that is something they're really, really excited and looking forward to. So they are optional to use. So students can have, you know, a small bag to carry items from class to class. So they may choose, if they only have an iPad or a couple of belongings, to not take a locker, and that is absolutely fine. So they are going to be assigned a couple of weeks into the school year once the class rosters are settled. A lot of times there's some movement in electives, or there might be some switching of teams and things like that as new students are enrolled. So we want to wait until all of that settles because they're going to be assigned by their 6th period class because that way they can grab their belongings prior to 7th period and prior to dismissal. So they're not having to run to their locker and try to figure out how to open it before getting on the bus. And so our buses are going to be on time and here right away and ready to collect students. And so we want to make sure that they can get out there. The other thing we're going to say about lockers and emphasize to students is that they're only going to be accessible during passing time. We don't want kids raising their hands to go out in the hallway to grab things from their locker throughout the day. We want them in the classroom learning and then lunch and before school. So again, students will not be able to leave class to go to their lockers. Everyone is going to have to learn how to open a locker. This is not going to be a 6th grade thing. Me and Miss Stover are going to have to learn how to open the lockers. It's new for all of us. And so I know kids are chopping at the bit to get those, but they're just going to have to be a little patient as we get through the first couple of weeks of school. The other thing I'll mention kind of before we move on from that is just supplies in general. In the past, we've kind of given a pretty large list of things to purchase. One of the things I would say that now that we've gone to one-to-one and we've had a pretty successful iPad swap out and pick up the last couple of days is that a lot of what students are doing is going to be through Canvas. There's less of a need to have large textbooks in their backpacks. So some classes will require some notebooks and things like that. But I wouldn't have students come to school with a really heavy stuffed backpack. I'd have them go to their class for the first couple of days, bring the supplies that we kind of listed in our welcome letter, just the basic things that we know that they will need, and wait for teachers to let them know if there's anything additional that they might want to purchase. Because what we don't want is really heavy backs, especially as kids are coming to school the first couple weeks before lockers are distributed. Next slide, please. So PE, there's been some questions about how we're going to do PE. And it's changed with the guidance now that we're going to have masks are going to be worn for outside activity as well. Normally, prior to COVID and prior to the construction project and the bond project, every student would go into the locker room to dress down. And that's going to be a little different this year. So what we're asking students to do is they're going to go, they're going to have the option to dress down if they would like. But what they need to do is they need to be prepared to participate in PE. So please ensure students are dressed comfortably for PE. So sneakers or tennis shoes, t-shirt, loose fitting pants or shorts, things that they can do the activity that's available to them. If they are wearing something where they do want to change, they have some different shoes on, they want to swap them out, they're going to have the opportunity to do that. But we just want to minimize the, like I said, the close congregation of students. And the locker room is a place where a lot of students can gather, and it's harder to maintain distance and proper mask use and those kinds of things. And so we want to minimize that congestion. So we're just asking is that kids know if they have, when they have PE, that they need to be dressed to participate in those activities. And then masks are worn during all activities unless 6 feet apart outside, or if there's a hazard involved with the mask, wearing of the mask, which shouldn't be too much of a problem for us in Twality. Next slide, please. So dismissal and bus protocols are going to look a little bit different. We are going to do a staggered dismissal from classrooms to minimize large group interactions. So our dismissal is now 3:10, which is an earlier time of the day. So we're going to release, we can fit about 9 buses behind the school at a time, and we have 18 buses at Twality. So we want to get that first wave of students outside of school and on their bus, so we can bring those other 9 students in without kids congregating outside, because we simply don't have the space for 1,100 students to be waiting for buses on that back sidewalk. So that's going to feel a little different than students, but they're really going to be dismissed by their teacher, not necessarily an ending bell for the day. So that's going to be new. And then we want to make sure the kids are, maintaining space as much as possible, given the bus loads, and then really following the directions of the bus driver. It is not an easy job, and so we just want to make sure that kids are being very respectful. And now that there's a seating chart, really sticking to that, because that's going to help us with contact tracing as well. Next slide. Yeah, so the COVID-19 response. So we're going to use contact tracing to determine exposure to students and staff. And exposure means that a student is within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period, which means that they'd have an exposure. So exposed individuals quarantined for 14 days, and there's a few exceptions. So exception for students outside of 3 feet and masked. So if that's why we're keeping the seating chart. So if they're outside of that range, they do not need to quarantine. There's an exemption for students that are vaccinated and asymptomatic. So if those things are true for students, they are not going to need to quarantine and miss school for 14 days. And there's exemption for vaccinated staff that are asymptomatic. So all of our staff, teachers and classified staff will be vaccinated. If they're not exhibiting symptoms, they will not need to quarantine and continue teaching and working with kids. Next slide, please. And then Parent View. So please update your vaccination records using Parent View. Instructions will be posted on our website as soon as they're available. And you're going to contact our registrar for support. That's going to be really important as we're doing some investigation. If we're looking into a COVID case, we want to make sure that we know which students are vaccinated so we can make a plan for them to continue learning after that takes place. So please upload those as soon as possible. Next slide, please. So next week, just want to kind of remind folks about what we have going on. So 6th grade orientation is Web Day. That's the time when kids get to see our campus, meet other students from the other elementary schools, have some fun activities, and get excited for their learning for the year. So that's going to be Wednesday. It's from 8:30 to 12:30. So students are going to enter either the front of the building or the back by the basketball courts, like I mentioned. And it's just a great way, and we're really excited to have that continue with us this year. Next slide, please. Tuesday, September 7th, as Ms. Stover mentioned, will be the day that schedules are released and students will be able to see their classes and have a sense of where they're going. So, and we're going to start sending weekly communications starting this week from Twality, like we did last year. And in that, there's going to be a map of the school, our bell schedule, and some other things that you can have some easy access to. There'll be links included in our community letter this week. Next slide, please. Thursday, September 9th, will be an all student orientation. So we know that the 7th graders, there's a lot of students who haven't been here, and 8th graders as well. They're also going to have a different kind of schedule because they're going to be experiencing 7 classes and passing periods and all the things that didn't take place last year. So each period of the day, there's going to be some new information and activities and learning for kids to do as they're oriented to our new campus and the new Twality. Next slide. And then Friday is going to be the first full day of academic classes. So without the orientation, it'll be the first time that they're starting to learn more about what they're going to be learning throughout the year, getting to know their teachers and all that. So that's going to be sort of those first 3 days and what kids should expect next week. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stover to talk about some volunteer opportunities at Twality.
Sure. So we have a couple areas. Well, we can't welcome volunteers back into the building just yet. We do have some ways that we would love your help and contribution. In particular, we have a need for backpacks, pencils, colored pencil packs, and Kleenex for our students. So if you are interested in donating new or gently used backpacks or these school supplies, we will have bins set up in the entrance at Twality between 7:30 and 3:30. You can just swing by, drop them in. I know they'll be appreciated we want every student to feel ready to go on the first day and have those supplies. So we would appreciate your help on that. Next slide. Just a shout out to those of you that have already been involved with the Packed with Pride program. We are looking to continue that program this year, and it is shifting to local control at the school buildings. And we need Twality volunteers in late September, early October to support us in packing boxes and maybe delivering boxes for families that are participating in Packed with Pride. And if you're interested in being a volunteer for Twality, please contact our family liaison, Joel Espiro. There's his email and contact information there, or you can just call the school building. He is a Spanish speaker.
All right, next slide, or is that it?
I think that might be it.
Okay.
But we do have some questions, Mr. Curl. And so one of the big ones is there bus service on 6th grade orientation day?
There is bus service, and so students will be able to take the bus on that day.
And can you just reiterate one more time when school starts? We have a special schedule on Wednesday to welcome our 6th graders. School starts and ends on Thursday.
Yeah, it starts at 8:30. It's the first regular day of school, but we're going to treat it like an orientation. And so there'll be a lot of get to know you activities with classroom teachers, as well as going through a lot of the expectations and kind of getting to know the building and how we're going to do different things at Twality. That's going to be Thursday. And so it'll be a regular 8:30 to 3:10 school day.
Great. And for those of you that are curious, there will be free lunches for all students, just like last year. Anyone who wants it can access free lunch. And we're also wanting to have grab and go snacks in the morning as students come into school. There's been a couple questions about the bus, and if you get to choose who you sit with on the bus, we want to create that opportunity for students. Obviously, the first week, We're going to need to continue to welcome students that are enrolling into our school. But after that first full week, and then we get our ridership settled, bus drivers will be working with students to create an opportunity to do a seating chart, and there will be a chance to choose who you would like to sit with. So, okay, so lockers, no one has to share a locker. Everyone will have their own locker. So there was a question about sharing, or that's kind of everyone will have one, and we're going to look to put your student's locker near their classroom. There's some questions about, we really want to not miss instruction time to access the locker. Obviously, there are circumstances that arise where a student might need to access it. But more to come on that. We're going to have some very intentional instruction around how to use our lockers responsibly, how to keep them clean, like maybe not keep a carton of milk in there for a month and forget about it, that sort of thing. We'll be working on responsible locker citizenship here as we get ready to sign them out. Let's see. Looking for other common questions. Okay, so if a student, Mr. Curl, we have a couple in the instance where a student may need to be quarantined or take an extended time away from school because of illness, how will they be caught up?
Yeah.
Want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So last year, we brought on Canvas as our main learning management system. And it is a way for all students to look at assignments and review them, as well as turn them in and get feedback from teachers, et cetera. So teachers are going to have that same system set up and modules to work through. So students will have a chance to asynchronously go through their classes and not feel behind. So all those resources and things that happen in the class will still be housed in Canvas.
We are super excited that after school activities are back on. So you could look for information about after school activities coming out after school starts, with activities actually starting the last week of September. That's what we're shooting for. And what I'm excited about is they're going to get to take advantage of our new facility space and our new turf, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah. So, Ms. Dover, how do they know how to sign up for an after-school activity?
We will be in morning meeting. We will be pushing that out in our Friday family communications, and we will have an orientation in morning meeting. Students through Twality News Network will get some information about after-school activities. They can sign up through our bookkeeper before after school. I believe there's probably even an online sign up. So more information to come on that.
Okay. Other questions?
Some of you are sharing, like, we just completed our iPad pickup. Thank you for those of you that participated. We got a lot of you through that line, and it was really fun to see some familiar faces and welcome some of our new sixth graders. If you were not able to pick up your iPad during our checkout, do not worry. We have an iPad waiting for you. You will not miss any homework or anything if you don't have your iPad on your first period of your first day of school. We will use lunchtime to make sure that all of our students that didn't pick it up this week get their iPad and are ready to engage in their studies. So do not worry. We will start that iPad checkout once school starts.
Other questions that I'm seeing are around, there's a question about any LGBTQ clubs and groups. Twality does have affinity groups, and students will have a chance to forecast for that for their morning meeting, which will take place in September. So there will be some more information for students who would like to join an affinity group.
I'm also seeing, we are so excited. Our performance teachers are so excited to invite our musicians back into class to play and practice together. Those of us that did this last year online know it was a challenge, and I totally appreciate the musicians that persevered. We want you back in our band program, in our orchestra programs, and we will be following the guidelines, safety guidelines provided for us around band, which is 3 feet distance in our large, very airy band room, and taking up for band in particular, we have the ability, if you are playing the trumpet or clarinet, while you're playing, you can remove your mask to play and practice. When you're not playing, you put your mask back on. And I know that Mrs. Suike is working hard to make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe in that class with this amazing weather, by even some outdoor opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. So there's some questions about 6th grade, the 6th grade days. 6th graders will not need their iPads for the welcome day at all. So those can be left at home. As students enter, there's going to be web leaders. They're going to be wearing orange t-shirts. They're going to be excited and greeting kids, and they're going to direct them exactly where they need to go. So I would not stress about 6th grade. There's a lot of volunteers and a lot of people on hand to make sure kids are going to be spending time together. And those kids are actually going to be doing a lot of their larger activities outside on the turf that day. So they'll be able to kind of spread out and have some fun being the first Twality students out there on the turf.
And just speaking of the turf, there was a question about, will students have the choice to eat outside? And Mr. Curl and I experienced this when we were in, those of us that were with us in the old Templeton, we did allow eating outside. It got a little messy, I can tell you that. So we just have these beautiful new grounds. We have a beautiful turf. We want to protect those spaces. We want to keep them clean. So we're going to ask students to keep the food inside in our cafeteria. We have some very intentional seating in the cafeteria that allow people to take their masks off and eat 6 feet apart. And then we're going to keep the sport, the play, the walking around for our turf and track and outdoor basketball courts.
There's a question about having water bottles in the classroom. So students will be allowed to have water bottles. Teachers on that first day will kind of show, like, if you need to take a sip, how do you do that with your mask? But during the class, they're not allowed to take off their mask fully to have a drink or have a bite of a bar or things like that. But they will be allowed to have water bottles in class.
Just to kind of, Mr. Curl kind of showed us a map earlier, kind of showing how you can enter the school. Those of you that were in hybrid last year, remember there was a very specific way of entering the back door of Twality. We can loosen that up now. Walkers and bike riders can enter the main doorways of Twality in the front, but they also can enter in the back. And there's also bike racks back there where you can lock up a bike. So that is definitely a place where bike riders can park their bike and then come on in.
Other questions, Ms. Dover?
Yeah, I just, in terms of like maintaining the iPad, technical issues that might come up with the iPad, we will have, after school starts, a tech support individual, a tech helpline that you can call if you are having issues with your iPad. So just know that while people are in school, also your students will have access to that sort of support. This is, someone's asking, are the students going to have any fun? This sounds depressing and sterile. I can just tell you already the feeling that we are having in the hallways at Twality right now. As those of you that started with the meeting with us saw our video of us kind of staff getting ready for students to come back, I think there is a lot of excitement in the air and hustle and bustle. It really does, while we are coming back in masks and we need to keep each other safe, there is that feeling that there is going to be more normalcy in the air in terms of our classrooms. And if you think about it, last year we couldn't have electives in that in person, and now we have physical education. We have an amazing engineering and design classes that your students are going to participate in. We have a yearbook class. We have outdoor explorations, which is a new class for us that's going to take students outside and explore our natural environments. I just feel like I'm very optimistic for your students that they are going to have the socialization and connectivity that we've all missed during this last year. And it's not going to be quite so impacted by the distancing rules as we experienced in hybrid. So I hope you guys are getting excited about coming back. We are excited to welcome you. Our building, it's just incredible, and we can't wait to have you come in and check it out.
So there's a question about COVID outbreaks at school and how we're going to communicate that. So we will have communication ready. If there is an exposure and every family will be notified. It will be a phone call if there's direct exposure, and there'll be other communication if it took place in a classroom or a bus. So please know that that is not something that we're going to keep to ourselves. We want to make sure that you're aware of what happens in our community.
There's some questions about like snacks and like the grab and go breakfast and how students should eat them if they, and also follow the mask rules. Do you want to talk about that, Andrew, and like designated mask breaks?
Yeah, so kids are going to be entering the school at 8:15. That is an opportunity where there's going to be breakfast available to grab. The commons will be available for students who want to grab a snack in the morning. They're going to be sitting on the X is the routine we're going to teach students to have a quick snack before they go to class. One of the lunches is pretty late in the afternoon, and there will be students who get hungry. So one of the things we've asked teachers to do is there's going to be opportunities where they're going to have some activities that are outside. So we have different places on our campus that teachers can check out an outdoor location. And so they can do an activity out there. That will be an opportunity to spread 6 feet apart and take a mask break as well as have a snack. And then also, during class, as I mentioned, there's going to be a way for students to, lift masks and drink water or, have a bite of something. But we're just not having full on breakfast or full on meals during class time.
Andrew, I think you covered this, but for incoming sixth graders, they're going to receive their schedule electronically via Parent View and Student View on Tuesday, September 7th. On Wednesday, their first orientation day, are they going to get a chance to walk their schedule? Tell us a little bit more about that day in detail to get people excited.
On sixth grade day?
Yes.
Yeah. So sixth grade day. So it's the web activities are pretty specific. So they're going to be able to see their classes. All sixth grade families should have received a letter letting you know who your teacher teams are. So students should know who those folks are. We'll be sending out a campus map with our classrooms so students will have an idea once they're in the space where those classrooms might be. But really the idea of the web day is to do a lot of community building activities together. They do get a tour of the school and they also get to meet some student leaders, some eighth graders who are going to walk them through some fun and cool activities so they can kind of get to know each other. The idea is to get sixth graders really excited about being in middle school and making some early connections and also getting to know the grounds. And so they feel like they're ready and pumped up to come to Twality and join the 7th and 8th graders on the next day. So that day runs again from 8:30 to 12:30. They will be able to get a grab and go lunch toward the end of that.
And just to talk again about, will sixth graders get to eat? There's a question, sixth graders eat lunch together or split by cohorts? Remember, we're watching the metrics right now and we're reacting to them. We're starting, September, probably October, by having lunches in 2 shifts. So if your sixth grader is in the upper hallway, they will have lunch with all the other sixth graders from the upper hallway. Sixth graders in the lower hallway will have sixth graders with the other sixth graders in the lower hallways. So yes, there will be 2 large cohorts that have lunch together, I guess. Does that make sense? And then they will shift. But hopefully, as things improve, we will be shifting to a all grade lunch, all sixth grade lunch.
Yeah.
Locker decorations are allowed.
Not on the outside.
Not on the outside, on the inside.
And they need to be school appropriate.
We'll talk about that together. One thing that Mr. Curl and I are excited about this year is during morning meeting, we are going to be meeting once a month with students just to get their feedback about what's happening in our community and work together around constructing community agreements. And I think lockers would be one of our fun first topics.
It would be, for sure. I saw a question come in about a 7th grade student who's new to Oregon, who's coming to Twality for the first time. I just want to say that most of our kids, Twality is going to feel really new for. That's why our Thursday is going to be sort of a school-wide orientation. So no matter if you're new to Oregon or new to 7th grade or new to the community, that first day of school is going to be really designed for every kid to get to know school and get to know other students and get to know their teachers, as well as learning about some of our routines and expectations at Twality. So I wouldn't fear about missing that web day for 6th graders. Just know that every student at Twality is going to have an orientation. So about a couple minutes left, Ms. Dover. Do you see some themes or questions that we missed? And we'll have notes of these questions as well. And so as we're thinking about family communication, we'll be able to catch up and write some more thorough responses if we missed anything tonight.
I think, there was a question, are phones allowed? Maybe that would be one that we might want to let families know about.
Yeah, so our policy is that the phones are off and away from bell to bell during class time. At the teacher's discretion, depending on if there's an activity. So maybe I'm in a yearbook class and I'm doing some filming or things like that. There might be something where that's allowed. And there might be some natural brain breaks for students. Maybe they're going outside to do a mask break. That might be an opportunity where a teacher would allow that. And then students will be allowed to have phones at lunch, knowing that they're going to be spread 6 feet apart. We're asking that the iPads stay in the classroom because we want those to be charged and used for instruction. That being said, that's kind of new to us. And so we want to make sure that kids are staying, away from social media. We want to go over a lot of our bullying policy and things like that might happen online. And we don't want kids, listening to music really loudly or, disrupting others, as well as taking pictures of kids in an unwanted way. So we want it to be controlled, but there will be opportunities for kids to use their phones at school, knowing that the last 18 months, they've had a lot of access to technology. So we just wanted to create a humane and realistic expectation for students.
Should students bring their backpack on the web day, incoming 6th graders, with school supplies?
They just need to bring themselves. 6th graders can just bring themselves.
And iPads, there's a question like, are they meant to come home every night or be left at school? We typically want to create a culture where the iPad is traveling with the student and it's being charged every night. If there's one thing that I would emphasize on behalf of all of our teachers probably is like, please build a routine in where you are plugging in that iPad every night and it's coming to school fully charged, because it is a really fun and dynamic learning tool that is used all day in our classes.
Mm-hmm.
We are hoping to have field trips as the year progresses. Myra, wait and see. Maybe not the first couple weeks, but we're hoping that gets back online.
Yes, we would love to have that happen. We just need to wait and see. We'll wait for the Delta variant, hopefully, to diminish in our community.
There will be lunch at the web orientation day. I mean, 6th graders are welcome to bring their own lunch. We will not have a community microwave to kick off the year, just to continue to maintain distance, but their lunch will be provided if you would like it. And there was a question about Bus pickups at apartment complexes, that's a good one. I would say that I traveled last year with the bus driver, which was a really interesting experience all around Tigard. I have deep respect for our bus drivers now after watching him navigate the traffic. But I felt like there was a really obvious place that they would stop for students that was pretty visible. And I think if there's other Twality students in your apartment complex you could talk to that are older, Isabel, you will know where to go.
All right, so we are getting towards the end. Like, as I mentioned, there are some questions on here that we probably didn't have a chance to get to as we were talking through things tonight. But me and Ms. Stover will take a list of all these questions. The first family communication is coming out this week. You can anticipate seeing a family communication from us every Friday with more information, and we're going to do our best to make sure that the kids feel prepared and that you feel prepared for us welcoming students to Twality. So I just want to end by thanking all of you for your partnership. We are genuinely really excited about this school year. I can't say that enough. We are excited to see kids 5 days a week. We are excited that they get to experience electives. We're excited to have them in our hallways and in our new spaces. And Twality is a wonderful group of teachers and staff members who really care and are here for kids. And I know that our students are going to feel that love from our staff as they welcome us. And so just please rest assured that we've been preparing for this day for a really long time. And so we just really can't wait to welcome kids into our hallways. So thank you.
See you soon, Twality.